Okay, in this video, we are going to be discussing the basic waveforms. It's really important that you see them. I'm also going to share with you how they sound. And then I'm also going to reveal to you what's called the fundamental and harmonics. So I'm just going to write waveforms here, okay? So these are the basic waveforms. Now, before we get into these waveforms, I just want to reveal the three basic principles of sound design, okay? And again, these are your oscillators. So this is what is generating these waveforms, okay? So what happens is we have this waveform and the oscillator literally just kind of keeps repeating this waveform. So for example, if we just had like a sine wave and it just looks like that, okay? This oscillator is constantly looping this waveform over and over, okay? Basic principle number one. Basic principle number two is an envelope, okay? And we'll get into this a little bit later, but it's very, very important that you understand that these are the three principles which we are covering in this course. And this is a filter, okay? So oscillator, envelope, filter. Very, very important to understand. Okay, so we are pretty much right here at the moment. We are learning about waveforms and the basic shapes, okay? So the oscillator loops over these waveforms. So we need to create some type of sound source, okay? And this sound source is the base foundation of our sound, which we will then further process with something like an envelope, or we can even process it with a filter, or we can do it with both and create really cool sounds, okay? So let's talk about the sine wave, okay? Let's actually get a different color and we're gonna, give us some color, okay? So I'm just drawing a line across here and this is a basic sine wave, okay? And here is the positive and here is the negative, okay? Just that's something for you to be aware of as we continue drawing these waveforms. A cool fun fact is I believe positive pushes like your speaker cone out and the negative, I believe, pulls it back. So this is a sine wave and I want to spend a little bit more time on this sine wave than on the three other waveforms. Okay, these are like your basic waveforms, but it is a sine wave, a triangle wave, saw wave, and a square wave. Those are like pretty much like your basic waveforms, okay? And what's really, really cool about a sine wave is that it's actually a single frequency. Okay, and I'm actually going to write that. So single frequency, okay? And when we hop into FL Studio, I'm going to show with you the fundamental and the harmonics, okay? The fundamental is, the actual bass pitch of that sound. And it's really important that you're not affecting the fundamental too much, because if you do, it's not going to be in pitch with your other instruments. So it's really important that this fundamental that you don't really touch, okay? You can mess around with it a little bit. And then what's called harmonics, okay? These are the extra frequencies on top of the fundamental. So when you play a sine wave, you're actually just playing the fundamental, okay? Imagine you're just playing a single sine wave, and let's just say it was at like 72 hertz, okay? So what's happening is this oscillator is just looping over this sine wave over and over and over, okay, at 72 hertz, and it's going to be that fundamental. Okay, I'm just going to quickly draw the other three waveforms, and then we will hop into FL Studio for you to actually hear them, okay? So this is a square wave, okay? So that's just the line again, and we're going to go positive, we're going to come back to negative, and that's square, just like that, okay? We're going to go to a triangle, so same thing, and it's just kind of like this, okay? And these are symmetrical, okay? So imagine this is the exact same as down here. But again, this is the triangle. And if we go like this, okay? So this one here is a saw wave, so a sawtooth waveform, okay? And it just kind of goes up and it cuts right down. Then it goes over again and it would just kind of continue like that, okay? And I'll also just put like a picture on the screen here. And this is what the actual waveforms look like, okay? So that you guys don't have to look at my drawing. But yes, this one is a saw waveform. Okay, and before we head into FL Studio, I just want to share that your square wave and your saw wave, these ones are going to give you like the most harmonics, like the most aggressiveness, okay? So again, the sine wave, this is your basic fundamental. Then you start adding on these harmonics once you start adding in like a triangle wave or a square wave or a saw wave, okay? So here we are in FL Studio. I'm just going to play a single note for you. And as you can see right now, I'm on a sine wave, okay? So I'm actually using the synth Serum, okay? And if you don't have it, it's okay. You guys could be just learning off of it, okay? You guys do not need these synths. I'm just, they're really good to learn off of. They're really visual, but you can apply this knowledge to any synth, okay? So Serum is a wave table synthesizer. And so what that means is if I click here, we can actually see the different waveforms. So when I use this knob right here and go through the actual waveforms, and if I click again, we can actually see that's how I'm switching them, okay? I also clicked up here, went to analog, and I went to basic shapes. So let's first talk about the sine wave, because a sine wave is actually a very, very special waveform because it's only a single frequency. So over here we have the analyzer, okay? So this is 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Supposedly humans can only hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. And as you start to get older, your high end starts to diminish a little bit. So maybe you can only hear like 16,000 hertz or something like that, okay? So when I play this sine wave, you're gonna see the fundamental. Okay, so if I just hold that there, you can see that this right here is a single frequency. This is the fundamental of the sound. That is the actual pitch that this sine wave is in. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold down that note and I'm gonna change the waveform. And you're gonna see that we still have our fundamental, but we're adding on these harmonics, which is adding brightness into the sound, okay? Because, it's higher frequencies. So here is the fundamental. I'm just holding down the note, that's a sine wave. Let's go to the next waveform. This is a saw wave. As you can see, all the frequencies it added on, but we still have our fundamental right here. This is the fundamental, okay? We go to the next one. This is a triangle wave. So as you can see, it's not as aggressive, but we still have our fundamental. We go to the next one. This is a square wave. This is the fundamental. So, at about 259 hertz, and then all the other frequencies are the harmonics on top of that fundamental. And one other thing I want to talk to you about, and this is important because we're talking about the waveforms, is inside of pigments, if I click just engine 2, so inside of pigments, you have these different engine types. So there's wavetable synthesis, sample based, okay? We'll cover that in the next video about the different types of synthesis. But for now, analog. So analog, if I select it, you can see that we have our different waveforms, okay? And this is the reason why I said it's really important that you learn these basic waveforms because they're in every single synth. Okay, and another thing you're going to see is an oscillator. And the oscillator, all it's doing is it's just looping over this waveform. I want to reveal to you this width knob, okay? Now this is what's called pulse width modulation. You can actually only use it, I believe, with certain waveforms, within pigments anyways. But as you can see, I can't use like the width knob on a sine wave. But again, the basic waveforms, we have sine wave, triangle wave, saw wave. Now we go to, let's say, to the square wave, okay? So where this width knob comes in, and I'll play this for you, is it's called pulse width modulation. So you can actually take this square wave and you can adjust the width of it and it gives you a different sound. So let's just listen to that. Okay, now again, if we are going to be doing sound design, maybe I'm going to adjust it there, and oh, I like it there, okay? Now you can actually add on another oscillator, and then you start kind of increasing the volume. And the really powerful thing about this is you can just kind of layer them gently, okay? You don't need to have everything loud. You can kind of pull it back a little bit, and we'll cover that stuff more later on. But again, the basic waveforms was the sine wave, triangle wave, saw wave, and then the square wave, okay?